Good to go? Yeah? Queensland's international tourism sector continues to rebuild after the COVID-19 pandemic saw our borders close. And today we're announcing Emirates' decision to double its number of services between Dubai and Brisbane beginning on the 1st of June this year. It's a great result for Queensland and for the return of international tourism here in Queensland. People right around the world are looking to come to Queensland, and many of them will come here via Dubai on these new Emirates flights. It's a clear indication that international travel is back on the global agenda. This new flight is the result of our Attracting Aviation Investment Fund, a $200 million fund supporting airlines to rebuild their services back to Queensland. It's the 11th such deal that we've announced. The Aviation Investment Fund is estimated to assist in the delivery of 5.3 million additional airline seats a year, which will generate $4 billion in overseas visitor expenditure here in Queensland. Emirates, of course, is the Middle East's largest airline and one of the world's largest airlines, and they'll use a Boeing 777-300 aircraft on the new service, which will carry 354 passengers per flight. It's in addition to the existing A380 service, which lands here each morning from Dubai. On a yearly basis, this will see 129,210 seats, 38,610 visitors, and $75 million in visitor expenditure. The UAE is also one of our larger trading partners. We send $128 million of exports to the UAE, and this service will allow us to send an additional 22 tonnes of agricultural products to them, and we continue to work with other airlines on their proposals for consideration.
Thank you. Welcome all to Brisbane Airport. My name is Gert-Jan de Graaf. I'm the CEO of Brisbane Airport Corporation. Well, thank you for joining us for a very important and very pleasant announcement. But before I go there, I would like to pay my respect to the Turrbal people, the traditional owners of the land on which Brisbane Airport is founded. As I said, a very pleasant and positive announcement. Emirates is communicating today to the public that they will add another flight to their network into Brisbane Airport. That will be a 777-300ER with 354 seats, which is fantastic news because that means on an annual basis we see 254,000 seats traveling to and from Brisbane Airport. So that's the 129 times 2. That's very good news because that will connect Brisbane in a much better way than currently with the Middle East, first and foremost, but also with Europe, the UK and with India. Very, very important markets for Southeast Queensland in terms of exports, in terms of travel of Queenslanders there, but also for people to come here to visit our beautiful state and to work here. Well, this is not only the only news about Emirates Airlines, it's also the fact that later this year, and I'm sure Dean will talk more about that, we will celebrate 20 years of operation of Emirates Airport into Brisbane, which is phenomenal and very good news. And this additional flight is great testament of the partnership between Brisbane Airport Corporation, Brisbane Airport and Emirates, and also a testament of the confidence Emirates has in the market and the recovery of the market after the pandemic. Emirates continued to operate during the pandemic with one aircraft, which was incredibly important for the repatriation of Aussies back home, but also to keep the cargo flows going, including medication and other drugs, which was obviously incredibly important during the pandemic. They kept Brisbane connected to the rest of the world when travel was really, really difficult and really hard. It was also a time that there was hardly any international passenger here at Brisbane Airport, and therefore it's great to see that our network is recovering, and we're flying now to 24 destinations international with 29 airlines, which is very good news, but we're open to more good news in the future. As the acting Premier said, this is a also a great testament to the Attracting Aviation Investment Fund that was created about a year ago by the state of Queensland, together with the 4 international airports here in Queensland. We funded $100 million from the airports and $100 million from state government to get those airlines back. And that's very, very successful, and this additional flight is a great example of that. So I would like to thank state government, Mr. Miles, for that great initiative, because it really works. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank Emirates for showing their confidence in our market, for coming back to Brisbane with this 777 on top of the A380 they're already operating. And I would like to thank in person Dean Cleaver, who's here today, for that decision. So, Dean, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Gert-Jan. We appreciate those kind words. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Emirates, I'm proud to advise that actually our second daily service to Brisbane does begin as we are about to celebrate 20 years of flying to the Sunshine State. The additional service, combined with our daily A380 into Brisbane, means Emirates will offer almost 12,000 seats into and out of Brisbane every single week. Not only will the service cater for Australians wishing to travel outbound, but it also welcome a lot of new travellers and tourists into Brisbane. And of course, Queensland being the tourism mecca of Australia. Emirates has been serving Australia for over 25 years, transporting over 46 million passengers between our gateways of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth via our hub and our global network. That's since we arrived back in June 1996. Today's announcement is another important milestone in the resumption of our Australian capacity, and it reconfirms our long-standing commitment to flying down under. So hence we look forward to welcoming more Australians on board to enjoy the Emirates experience from Brisbane. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any questions?
If you could just explain, has it always just been a one daily flight, or did things change during the pandemic?
We did operate 2 daily flights, so in fact the additional service today is actually a reinstatement of the second service, so which is good news. So for Brisbane we're back to 100% capacity.
And why now? Talk me through how the flights are at the moment.
Demand is strong in all cabins, all classes. Australians and tourists alike have got a real appetite now that the pandemic is, shall I say, in effect over, for travel. So yeah, it's all about demand driven. We're hopeful. It all comes down to capacity overall, but fares are driven by demand. So while the demand is strong, I think you'll still see them at a reasonable cost.
How much of the $200 million went towards this?
I'm not privy to that information, I'm sorry. You might be after Premier.
I don't think we disclose the individual amounts. Clearly we're still in talks with other airlines, so it would compromise those talks.
I've got a question on a different topic, if I can.
Yeah.
Cost of living is something a lot of Queensland parents are struggling with, and not all can afford swimming lessons for their children. Do you think more needs to be done so that parents can afford to teach their kids to swim?
Well, as we've indicated over the last week or so, all of our schools offer swimming lessons to their students. They are mandatory, although there are circumstances under which parents can opt out for their children. The most important thing for swim safety is for parents to teach their children to swim before they get to school. Many drownings occur before children turn 5. So this isn't really all about the work of our schools. Of course, we will continue to improve what we deliver in terms of swimming lessons at school, but the most important time to learn to swim is before you get to school.
Would your government consider doing more in this space?
Yeah, we'll continue to look at what is offered in each of our schools and continue to work with those school communities to see if we can improve them. Of course, it's not one size fits all. Every school is different, and so we need to have an approach that suits both the school community and the logistics of getting those kids to a pool.
What is the Gladstone Hospital?
We're recruiting more obstetricians, so we've appointed 4 new obstetricians into the Central Queensland Hospital and Health Service, and as they take up those positions, we'll be able to deliver more maternity services throughout that region.
So how many of those will actually be working in Gladstone?
That's still to be determined.
So they're not necessarily working in Gladstone?
They'll be working in the Central Queensland HHS.
So for now, mothers who want to give birth still have to drive about an hour in order to give birth?
It's been very challenging to recruit maternity staff into Gladstone, but now that CQHHS has recruited 4 additional obstetricians, they'll be able to deliver closer to the services that we aspire to.
Is there a timeline to return to Gladstone?
They're working through the details of when those 4 additional recruits will be in place. Obviously, they have existing work and living arrangements that need to be worked through.
Doctors have called for a round table to resolve the crisis. Will the government convene one?
Well, I think we know what the problem is. We need to recruit new staff, and we can't just create them out of thin air, and a roundtable isn't going to change that.
The doctors being greedy that they don't want to move to Gladstone?
It's a very tight labour market for every profession, including for medical professionals, but we'll continue to seek to recruit all of the staff that we need. As international borders continue to open up, we'll have more opportunity to recruit from overseas as well.
The opposition says you need to provide more incentivised packages to attract those doctors. Is that something you're looking at?
We already have very attractive packages for our medical professionals. I suspect that now that we can recruit more easily from overseas, we'll be able to fill some of those positions. I might just touch on the weather situation in North Queensland, if that's okay. We've been receiving regular briefings about the rainfall around Townsville and Mackay and the north of the state. The weather appears to be moving, contracting south towards Mackay, so easing in Townsville. We continue to monitor the rivers and dams. The councils, the local disaster groups are all doing a great job. Our greatest concern at this stage is flooded roads. The Bruce Highway is closed in and out of Mackay. We're concerned that as drive-in, drive-out workers begin to go back to their mines tonight and into tomorrow, that they'll come across those flooded roads. And so the main safety message, of course, continues to be, if it's flooded, forget it. Don't put your life at risk. Don't put the lives of our swiftwater rescue teams at risk. If it's flooded, do not try to cross it. But otherwise, we're pleased to report that there's been no loss of property or life.
Expecting the rains to get worse over the coming days?
I'll continue to monitor the situation. As I say, it's moving south away from Townsville and towards Cairns. Large amounts of rain, but of course that part of the state is used to large amounts of rain at this time of year, so we'll just continue to monitor the situation. Anything else? Very good. Thank you.